Did you miss out on all the free government money during the pandemic? Boy, aren't you the sucker. The Paycheck Protection Program dished out over $800 billion over the course of COVID, and conservative estimates put the fraud at around $100 billion stolen dollars at least. And that's just the grift they're admitting to. Between April and August of 2020, when people were really terrified and hurting, the program dished out loans to 57,000 people on the Treasury Department's do not pay list. That's like handing out first-class seats with beds to a bunch of terrorists on the no-fly list and hoping to catch up with them when they land. We'll see you guys later. The Small Business Administration handed out the end-of-the-world party cash, but they didn't bother to ID people, so career criminals were all too happy to separate the government from our money. Thanks, a-holes. One couple made off with $18 million in loans and absconded to Montenegro. I'm sure they'll be extradited soon. Or, more likely, the sounds of their corrupt laughter will eternally bounce off the walls of their new golden mansion. Another Florida fella took his 7.2 emergency millions and bought a 12,579 square foot mansion and 3 cars, including a Mercedes and a Maserati. Why wouldn't you? No vetting, no guilt. This entire enterprise was based on the assumption there would be massive fraud, but at least the government looked like it was doing something. And it was, fleecing taxpayers to the tune of $100 billion that will take years to track down if it's seized at all. Of course, partisan hacks are blaming the Trump administration, who, believe me, deserves a buttload of scorn. But President Trump did not invent the unholy marriage of bureaucracy and corruption that compounded with unimaginable pandemic speed. For God's sake, these idiot, incompetent agencies are still using paper. How could this not happen? The Paycheck Protection Program did little to help the millions of businesses who needed it most, yet shut down for good because filthy phonies figured out how to game a flawed system that once again proved the Shakespearean axiom, absolute power corrupts absolutely, and that's the memo. So who's going to clean up the government's mess? Probably you and me. Inspector General Michael Horowitz says they can start with transparency.
I think people made a conscious decision. We're going to get the money out, and if there's fraud, you'll chase it later. And that's just not an acceptable model. We believe transparency is the best disinfectant.
I wish they had gone to the Dollar Tree and gotten a bottle of that transparency before they decided to dish out almost $1 trillion in emergency loans. So show me the money, baby. The party panel is back. Charlie, Kevin, and Ilya. Ilya, we have been saying this from the beginning. This was just a magnet for corruption, for people to quickly figure out how to scam the government out of millions of dollars because they weren't checking for IDs when they were handing out free White Claws.
Yeah, and even when the money went to the right place, whether it's school districts or businesses or what have you.
Someone's microphone is going. Is someone's long, luscious beard rubbing against their microphone? No. Okay,
Not
sorry.
me.
Okay.
I'm hearing everything fine, but what I'm saying is when this goes on normally, but when we have the massive sluices of money going through with COVID, it's all of the waste and the fraud is accentuated. So yeah, there better be better controls, and they all better be digital rather than paper. For gosh sakes, it's 2022, and the inspectors general, now they have something to do. Let's round this stuff up.
Yeah, where were they beforehand, Kevin? It was okay to ask people for verification before they handed out millions and millions of dollars in loans. I was sitting there thinking anyone with a business entity can sign up for the party cash because they were not verifying mid-process. So, sorry, Kevin, it's probably exactly. The Trump administration, right?
Well, partly, obviously they were at the wheel for all of this operation and made the conscious decision, the Department of the Treasury and the Small Business Administration, to get as much cash out there as possible, foregoing this kind of authorizations that are normally in place for this kind of verification. And that's one of the reasons why, when the Biden administration came into office, they put stricter protocols in place to verify the veracity of some of these claims to this money. But this is a huge issue. It's going to take many years to clean up. A lot of the fraud that took place happened overseas, too. So there's no way we can kiss that American taxpayer money goodbye because of this issue. And it's going to take a long time to try and recapture some of those funds.
Yes. Hello, fun American. Oh, you want $7 million? Yes. Really? So people took the money and they ran. Some of them are running all the way to federal prison, Charlie, but it wasn't surprising. And like I said in my monologue, this is not the first time a government agency has been bureaucratic and corrupt.
Yeah, no, I'm all in favor of blaming everybody, Republicans, Democrats, everybody alike for this stuff. But this is exactly, your point is exactly right. This is not an aberration from what the government does. This is what the government does every time. They look at a problem and they say, well, we don't know how to fix it. We're just going to blow a bunch of money at it and see if that doesn't solve the problem. And then they're surprised that people go around and figure out ways to steal it from them, because normally all these criminals, who I hope go to jail for doing this, are 10 times smarter than the bureaucrats.
Of course, that's all they do. They just sit around thinking about how can I get free money.
But
that's like their job.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, exactly, and it's a very American thing, which I admire. But here's the other thing: we got double screwed by this, because not only did we get all of our tax dollars stolen from us by criminals, but then all this money also is contributing to this massive bomb of inflation that we're also having to pay for. So we get screwed twice.
Yeah, they get you coming and going. Just like my prom night, Charlie.
That's right.
Brings back a lot of memories.
Sign me up.
Yeah, well, night is young. It is springtime, Kevin.
Those didn't make the memoirs.
I mean, I think Montenegro's landlocked. Wouldn't you go to Albania? It's really cheap. They got good beaches. I don't know.
I mean, Ilya, you have like 1,500 degrees. Of course you would go to Albania. You would go to Albania, but Dum-Dum's like, we have $18 million. Maybe they have like a less fair or less reciprocity with their
extradition treaty.
Extradition treaty, exactly. All right. Meanwhile, former President Trump under attack again from one of his own cabinet members. I love these stories so much, it actually hurts my feelings. True to form, former president punching right back. A new book by former Defense Secretary Mark Esper claims the president considered firing missiles at drug cartels in Mexico and tried to bring home American troops from all over the world against the advice of top military officials. The president firing back in a statement, writing, quote, Mark Esper was a stiff who was desperate not to lose his job. He would do anything I wanted. That's why I called him Jesper. He was a lightweight and figurehead, and I realized it very early on. So is Esper's selling out the president to sell books? Charlie, I know people get really mad at the former president, and there's a lot about him that I did not like. I think my favorite thing about him was the crazy spitballing, like, why don't we just put a bunch of alligators in a moat at the border? No one likes alligators. Yeah, let's do that. Let's drink some bleach. You know, it's like none of these things actually made it to Policyville, but it sure would be fun to sit in those meetings.
It's called thinking outside the box, and that's a good thing, especially when the federal government is as screwed up as it is. Yeah. The guy could run on a bumper sticker that says, you can't screw it up. And I think that's a big reason why a lot of people voted for the guy in the first place, is because it's so screwed up, you can't mess it up. At least we're going to try something different. And he was definitely something different. But I agree with you. The thing that I miss the most about him are the nicknames, and calling him Jesper is so beautiful. And of course, what is it that Mike Esper, what was the name of the book? A Sacred Oath? I think, why do these people always, they spend their life in Washington as political hacks, and then they write a self-aggrandizing book with some obnoxious title like A Sacred Oath. He's talking about himself, of course.
I'm the only one in the room.
Gross. It's so nice to have the orange monster come in and come back with all of his beat down and calling him Mike Jesper.
Yeah, no, it's... I know everyone's got to write these books. That would be the only reason to work for the Trump administration, because, you know, it's like, I don't know that any of these people are going to have political lives after that, a lot of them, so they have to write books. Like, he was so awful, and I was the only one who saw it, Kevin, and he's not going to run again. So I don't know why everyone is worried.
Yeah, I mean, the most insane thing is I watched Brett Baer's interview with him earlier on Special Report, and I saw the book on the table, and it looked massive, and I looked it up. It's 752 pages. 752 pages about his time
okay, but I will
for
say
like
this.
for a year in office as, yeah.
Half of those are tasteful nudes. Tasteful. Go ahead.
All right, well then I'm going to get on Amazon right now. But I mean, that's the insane part, is that he spent more time writing this book than actually the months he served in office as Secretary of Defense. So I don't know who's going to buy this book. I love it, though, as a Democrat, because it's everyone feuding and everyone trying to settle scores and things like that. That's more power to the Democrats that are just going to be like, what the heck is going on here? We don't want him to run again. And I think the American people are exhausted by it, but not by these nicknames for sure.
No, we're being tortured by old white men, Ilya.
I mean, this is mostly a sideshow. All of these spate of cabinet officials and secretaries, I don't know if they time the release of all their books, because no one releases on the same day, but it's like every month there's a drip. Look, if Trump was really like so terrible and bad and about to bomb Canada or whoever, whatever, you know, you reveal it at the time. Doing it 2 years later to sell a book isn't going to do very much. I tell you what, though, I'm excited to read Bill Barr's memoir. Just another damn thing after another. That sounds kind of neat.
Yeah, but Bill Barr has a lot to answer for in terms of being the early architect of the surveillance state. And no one really pushes him on that. Maybe he'll come on this fine show, Grim, and we could talk about it. But you're absolutely right. Like, you know, if he's going to start lobbing cruise missiles at Justin Trudeau, you should tell us in the moment. And, you know, people got so mad at him for writing cute little love letters to Kim Jong-un. But I found it to be anti-war and adorable. Anti-warable.
I want to know what happened. I want to know what happened to buying Greenland. That sounded like actually a good idea to me. I think we should pursue that one.
That was another one, and people get so mad about this. And it's like, you wanted an anti-establishment person.
And he loved it.
He's a TV guy.
Yeah.
He's a reality TV guy. That's all he does, is sit around and think of ideas to get him through sweeps. Okay, we have to go soon.
Yeah, and Canadian Bacon was actually a really good movie.
It is, and it's also a delicious pizza topping with pineapple. I'll die on that hill. Gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for being here. Charlie, Kevin, and Ilya.
Can't agree to that.
Yes, agree to agree. Thank you. Great to see all of you.
Thumbs up for me.
Woo! Coming up, Elon Musk breaking the internet with a mysterious tweet about dying under mysterious circumstances. And we're told he's worried about the Russians. Would Putin ever put a hit out on the world's richest man? Brian Suits is going to cash in.